When you think of the most dangerous profession, what comes to mind? And I bet driving a truck is not one of them, but it should be. A Monash University study published last year found that the risk of a truck driver dying at work is 13 times higher than regular Aussies. It also found that truckies are at a higher risk of illness and psychological stress. This is not new news to Steve Corcoran. He's a Gold Coast truckie and he's made a submission to the Rural and Regional Affairs and Transport Inquiry, speaking here on why the industry is in crisis.
Had a head-on collision with a truck coming off the range. I was driving towards Toowoomba and he was driving towards Brisbane, and he hit me head-on at the bottom of the range, and so that closed the road for 14 hours that day, and took me a while to get back to work from my injuries and stuff like that.
Hard to even talk about.
Yeah, I'm back there right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the issues in the industry. Firstly, deadlines. How much pressure is there on you to get from A to B as fast as possible?
There's an immense amount of pressure on drivers to make their truck profitable for the company that owns it. Very competitive market. It's an unregulated market. The lowest bidder wins. The majority of drivers are very professional. The majority of drivers that are being killed in accidents caused by other road users. And that is the case in 82% of truck driver fatalities are caused by other road users. And so the 18% that's left over, they are automatically attributed to the truck driver at being at fault if it's a single vehicle accident, whether it's a medical incident or a mechanical issue or a road issue or weather.
Let's talk about the sleeper berths, because you have quite the issue with that. If you're just tuning in, Stephen Corcoran is my guest. He's a Gold Coast trucker. He's been doing it for decades, and he's now taking a stand saying that the safety of drivers needs to be addressed, and we'll tell you exactly how that is happening. So sleeper berths, we know that trucks have them, but you say that they are not adequate. Why?
Under the law, drivers have to maintain a level of duty, of care for everyone and be fit for duty. Everyone gets fatigued when they're driving. It's very stressful. All of the input, your brain just can't handle it. Best thing to do is have a sleep, and the current standards under the Australian design rules give a driver less than 1 cubic metre of sleeping area. It can be changed by amending the Australian design rules to implement larger spaces for drivers to sleep comfortably. Half of this desk is the room that you got to lay down in, and they give you 63 centimetres height. So it works out 0.6 of a cubic metre.
Okay, so there's a lot of figures there and people are trying to visualise how big a space that is. Is it about the size of a sleeping bag or about that size? Okay, so and you're saying that's not big enough? Is it air conditioned?
No, only Western Australia has the regulations that these sleeper berths are air conditioned above the 26th parallel between October and March to protect the drivers in Western Australia from the heat so they can rest in some comfort. But drivers in Queensland are not afforded best practices and not afforded this, what I believe should be a requirement.
Truck driver safety, ABC Gold Coast long-time truckie Steve Corcoran is with me. You also said that the industry is not well regulated after the abolition of the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal. What did getting rid of that tribunal mean to long-haul drivers?
The Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal held conferences and meetings and facilitated conferences across the industry for 4 years. In the first 2 years, they released Road Safety Remuneration Order Number 1. And Road Safety Remuneration Order Number 1 mandated that transport companies have a drug and alcohol policy in place. It also required that they give their drivers an employment contract setting out their rights and responsibilities. And also that it mandated that every trip over 500 kilometres, the driver would be given a safe driving plan. This would set out the trip for the driver, his maximum amount of work hours, when he could make his destination legally, and also advise them of parking bay areas and things like that. It actually took 7 years to get safe driver plans. They were a tool that we tried to get in for a long time before this.
So what's happened to this?
In 2016, the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal created Road Safety Remuneration Order number 2, and that set out minimum freight rates for across Australia. And this would make sure that all the trucks on the road were making enough money to have their brakes and tyres and suspension and steering wheel replaced as needed. Because the average age of the Australian fleet is 11 years old. The Malcolm Turnbull government calling a double dissolution election, and the very last piece of business that the Senate voted on was a repeal of the entire Road Safety Remuneration Act.
So it's gone.
It's gone.
Safe Work Australia has identified the road transport industry as a priority given the high number of fatalities. Will that make a difference?
I don't think so.
If something was brought in tomorrow that would make a difference to the lives of truck drivers and also to the motorists who drive alongside them, what would it be?
In 2012, when my friend David Barrett was killed in front of me at work,
What happened?
been asleep at Mackay all night. We had breakfast together. I said, you go first. He went, I went. We got down the road 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and he was killed in a head-on crash with another truck. And
He was in a truck.
he was in a truck and I was in a truck, and there was another truck coming at us, and they hit. And the design of the road that left us nowhere to go, and it was just an inevitable thing. They haven't upgraded the road at that site either. But 7 hours I was at that crash scene, and at the end of it, the police told me that I was right to go and drive home. So I jumped back in my truck, and it took me 2 days to drive back to Brisbane because I couldn't understand how someone could be compliant with 6,400 laws and still die. And so when I researched this and I researched what other industries had done to lower their fatality statistics, such as the mining industry, who had a horrendous fatality count over the years. Back in the day, it was massive. You would hear miners being killed all the time. Now, you very rarely hear of it because they increase the industry standards and conditions for their workers, and they introduce risk-based payments.
Danger? Are you talking about danger payment?
Danger money.
Okay, so how would danger money make a difference?
Well, it works in several ways. The first thing is it recognises that it is the most dangerous job in Australia. During my research, from when my friend was killed in front of me up in Mackay, I went back 10 years and we counted 779 truck drivers killed in the 10 years leading up to the 12th of February. Now there's been 650 since 2016, and we are going to reach that target in 4 years.
Where did you find those statistics?
The rules of counting fatalities are very complicated. Safe Work Australia, it can take 6 months for a fatality to go on their website, if it does at all. We keep an independent count as well because it's very, very hard to accumulate them all. Many accidents are not covered by the media. There's no reporting body. If anyone crashes or dies, that it's mandatory to report to them that someone's died. We have a driver shortage at the moment. There's not enough drivers because drivers are paid by a kilometre rate. They only get paid for the kilometres that they do, and if they are tired halfway through the week, they either go tired or they don't go and not get paid. Danger money gives them a breathing room and not lose their pay, right? Rest and not lose their pay.
Why would anyone want to be a truck driver?
It's a great job. I love doing it. It's been in my family. It used to be a great thing. I think people have lost sight of the fact that these drivers are driving trucks worth $350,000, $400,000. The trailer's another $150,000. There might be a couple of $1 million worth of freight on that trailer. They don't trust that to idiots. They trust that to professional, skilled operators that do it night after night, day after day. Of the average age of drivers being 55 years old, they're coming up to retirement. None of my kids want to drive trucks. None of my mates that used to drive trucks drive anymore.
It sounds like this is an industry in crisis.
It really is. It's not a very attractive proposition to go to work, and if you work 15 minutes too long, that's $660 fine. Now, that's more than you'll make for the day for a 15-minute infringement.
If you don't get to your destination in time or you're late, is that what you're referring to?
The work diary fines under the National Heavy Vehicle Law, a 15-minute infringement is $660.
Of driving over the allotted time you're allowed to.
If I start at 10 o'clock at night, I have to be off the road by 3 o'clock in the afternoon so I can have my 7-hour break, but in that 24-hour period. But say it's lunchtime and you're feeling a bit tired and there's a parking bay and you want to pull over and have a sleep for a couple of hours, you can, but technically you can't. Because if you have those couple of hours, the work diary doesn't allow that sleep time to be counted as in the major break. And so if you lose that 2 hours, you still have to pull up at 3 o'clock. Those 2 hours that you could have worked, now you can't work. It's really counterproductive, and it causes so much stress amongst drivers. They've got hundreds of cameras and all kinds of things to catch these drivers. They crack down very hard. There's a lot of money to be made by the government on these massive, massive fines. So it's not in drivers' interest to break the law.
Steve Corcoran, I thank you for taking us through a day in the life of a truck driver in Queensland, and in many ways it's not pretty. If
I could reach out to any truck drivers out there, the inquiry is ongoing. The Senate website does say submissions closed. I was talking to Glenn Stirls.
Who's the WA Senator?
Who's the WA Senator. He still wants to hear from you. Please, just shoot him an email, rat.sen@aph.gov.au, or they can just go on aph.gov.au and click on Senate, and the terms of reference and all the submissions are there. I believe there's nearly 60 submissions so far, which is very good, but we always need more. There's lots of stories out there about this industry that aren't being told, and I'm only one voice.
Indeed he is. He's been driving trucks for 25 years. He's a Gold Coast truck driver or based, Steve Corcoran. If you are in the industry, can you appreciate where Steve is coming from? You can give us a bell this morning on 1300 903 917. As Steve said, he is just one voice. You may have some more views to put forward. You can always text as well on 0487 99.